express what you need to do and what was important to express about concussions and in particular in the NFL?
I think the NFL obviously has gotten a lot of attention, and as a parent of small kids who are now at the age where they're going to be playing a lot more sports and at an age where they're going to be playing tackle football, I think just the awareness that this panel is able to bring to the issue would be the most important thing for me.
Okay. You talked a little bit on the panel about, briefly mentioned the lawsuit that's currently pending in the NFL and how many players are joining it. And you also mentioned that it's really not for the money, it's about the change. Can you talk about maybe some of the changes that could possibly occur from this lawsuit and whether you think they're good or bad for the game?
I guess I'm never really in favor of a lawsuit per se, but like I was saying, I think that the lawsuits that are out there, especially this big one here, it's really like signing a petition in that we are recognizing that things need to be done and change needs to be made. And the more that we can do that and the more voices and names that you can attach to that, we can really push forward the issue. And whether the game changes or not, at least parents, coaches, and everyone involved in the game recognizes that.
One of the other things that you mentioned, and a lot of the panelists mentioned and seem really put a lot of emphasis on, is the fact about what concussions mean in the community and starting early from the grassroots. And maybe we can talk about that as how can we facilitate this education from the beginning as opposed to after the fact that you got a concussion?
Well, it has to start somewhere, and I think just the simple awareness, I mean, I guess over time as we study it more, then we'll understand whether these head injuries, whether the constant blows to the head will affect our long-term health. But as long as we can start somewhere, and now we have the ability to do that and to be recognized is really important.
Thank you. Another thing you mentioned is the fact that in the NFL and really any competitive sport at any level, if you're a competitor, you don't want to take yourself out of the game. And a lot of times, admitting that you may be having these concussions, that's what it means if you are coming out of the game. And for some of the NFL players, that's their livelihood. That's how they get paid, and they could really result in being benched or cut. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can talk about that. Is that just back to education, or how can we facilitate players to be really open and honest with the teams?
I don't know if you really can. I mean, you're not going to ever interview a player that says that somebody else is hitting them too hard. It's a game of testosterone and manlyhood, and when you take that away from it, it changes the game. And the players, yeah, they are going to recognize that there might be some long-term effect of it. But to ask a young 18 to 27-year-old that's playing the game to stop doing what they're doing or to slow down and to make these changes, that window is so small that it's so hard to do, and you don't think about when you're 50 and 60 years old. So, while I'm sitting up here at 37 years old and I'm aware more of it, I would never have changed anything when I was younger. You couldn't have told me that to sit out because you couldn't afford to do it, and their players understand that window is so small. And it's really hard to get players to understand that at that age.
Okay. Where do you think the issue of concussions is going forward in the NFL? So you can first tackle, I guess, how's the league tackling this situation? Do you know any programs are initiating, and how on a team-by-team basis, or anything that teams are doing?
Not being in the team facilities and seeing how they are dealing with it specifically. I know baseline testing is really important, and everybody obviously is aware more of it. So as far as everybody's conscious of it, obviously, and they're going to try to make some changes, and whether those changes are going to work or not, and how that's going to be evolved. I think the scary thing, or not the scary thing, I think the one part of it is you just don't want to change the game. You don't want to change it to where it's not really football anymore. And that's kind of that fine line that they walk between changing what is the game to making it safer.
And then I guess this is just the last question to wrap it up. What kind of role do you think the media plays in this? And should there be any regulation of that? Because when you start getting the media to label these players. He's concussion prone. He's this. He's that, and it really affects. And that's just another deterrent. Whether these players get these symptoms, I don't want to be labeled as concussion prone. What's that going to mean for me? What do you think the media's impact on concussions in the NFL? Going forward, is there anything we can do? Or
I think the media has done a good. It's done a good service in at least getting that issue out there. Now, what is being said behind closed doors between general managers and coaches and the people that make the decision with who is on a football team, well, that's a different story. And if you are labeled concussion prone, I don't know if that's ever going to change. If you are somebody who's had a history of concussions, it doesn't really make much sense. Or you become more of a liability for a general manager, a coach, those people that are constructing those football teams, knowing that there's a talent pool out there that may not have these issues.